The dog died. And it's a really silly story. But every single student in my class did it, and every single person in the groups. It was not a group, it wasn't a 45 student class, I'll be quite honest. But it doesn't matter. Every single student did it. Every single student did it. And they had to, because if you don't write the sentence, the activity collapses. Now, there may be a student in the class who wants the activity to collapse. But that's a different story, and a bit outside today's talk. But the participation is mandatory. And of course, when you've done that, you've got a really nice resource. You can try and get the students to understand how to correct it, and so on and so forth. So when you do group work in big classes, the big secret is to try and do things where the students have to take part. There's a man called William Littlewood who years ago, I don't know whether you might have read his books, but years ago he wrote a book on the communicative approach. It was one of the first books I read. And I recently heard him give a talk for the first time in my life. He's somewhat older even than me, if that is believable. And he said, the problem with group work, he said, is that is you put students in groups. And if it's a discussion or something like that, half the time in a group of 5, 2 people do the work, 1 person listens, and a couple of people, well, he describes them as social loafers. That is, they're just sitting there with a glass of champagne and a cigarette, just watching everyone else go on. But of course, if that happens, the group work is a failure. So, could you quickly get into groups of 5? Groups of 5, groups of 5. And you must be a group of 5, and this time, groups of 5. Okay. In each group, everyone must have a number from 1 to 5. Just choose a number 1 to 5. Thank you. 1 to 5. It doesn't matter. Each one must have a number 1 to 5. I know. Okay, stop. Stop. Very quickly. Now, I'm not going to do this with the whole group because I'm running out of time, but this group is, which group is this? This is group, we're going to start with A, B, C. This is group A. You're group A. So you're group B. Group C. Group D. Group E. F. Group G. Group H. Group I. Group H. Group J. You're J. Group K. Group L. Group M. That'll do for the moment. Now, the beauty of numbered heads is this. Would you like to open your handouts at the text about the flying car? But I need it back. Loafing. To loaf around is a bit of a modism, a bit of an old-fashioned L-O-A-F, like a bread loaf. But it's a bit old-fashioned, but it means to kind of. Okay, now it's very simple. What I'm going to ask you to do is I'm going to ask you to read out the sentence from the text which you like best. Just like, by the way, I've been recently doing some research on reading aloud, which fascinates me. And one particular kind of reading aloud that people really do in life is when you're sitting at the newspaper, you've got a newspaper in your hand, and you're with your husband or your wife or your boyfriend or something, and you suddenly go, "Oh, look, it says here." And then you read something out from the newspaper. So what you're going to have to do, what you're going to have to do is to read out a sentence from the newspaper. So can you choose one? Can you choose one? Choose a sentence. Okay, who's going to read it out? Well, it's going to be group K number 3, please. K number 3. Will you read it? Read your sentence. Yes, K number 3. Read a sentence. It says here, just read a sentence from the text.
And while refilling involves no more than driving into the nearest forecourt and filling up with unleaded petrol.
Thank you very much. So remember to say, it says here, blah, blah, blah. So I know, I've got to stop, I know that, yes, but it says here, okay, it says here, let's have group D1. D1, please. D1. D1, who are you? Where are you? D1. Which is group D? Put up your hands. Who's number 1? Yes, okay, just very quickly, yes. Yes, just read out a sentence.
For the world's first flying car has been made this debut flight, soaring over the skies of the USA before touching down, and at the dash of the button forced its wing away and hit the highway.
Thank you very much. Let's have another sentence. Read out, but remember to say, it says here that that's what you're saying, because you're reading it out because you're so interested. Let's have someone from group F4. Who's F4? F4. Okay?
It says driver will also need to provide full driver's or pilot's license if they get pulled over by truck.
Thank you very much. And we could go on for a long time, but the real beauty, this isn't my idea, the real beauty of that is you almost instantly realized that I had no idea who I was going to ask. And you had no idea who I was going to ask, and you knew that I didn't have any idea who I was going to ask. So there's no chance that you can relax, because it might be you. And if I say D3, I don't know who I'm asking. Because I don't even know, I sort of know where the groups are, but I don't know who chose what number. And numbered heads is a way of mandatory participation. Now, and by the way, there's the car. Now, in the remaining hour and a half of this talk, hour and a half, no, I'm not going to go on for long. I would just tell you one other activity that I would have done with you if I could, and it's just a very nice little activity, but I never got round to it. And this is called rolling the dice. And the answer was to show students a picture of the Nazca lines. And then I would dictate the sentences for the handout, you'll see on the next page. I would dictate the sentences on the handout, saying things like,
Some people think they want to put there.
yes, but I've got the real ones. For example, I would read it, I would say, some people think that they were put there for irrigation, and the students have to write down for irrigation. Other people say they were put there for measuring the moon and the stars. And some people say that the animals were designed to ask the gods for health and happiness. Eric von Däniken thinks they were designed as landing strips for creatures from outer space. So the students write that down, and then we move a little further south and west. There we are, there are them. Then we move a little further south and west to something you know very well. And then I read out the same kind of thing. I say, some people think that they were the living faces of our dead ancestors. Other believes they were made as statues of the gods. Eric von Däniken thinks they were designed as landing strips for the gods. And so they read that out. Now, my students have recently been studying the difference between can't have, must have, might have, and must have, and so on and so forth. So what I want them to be able to say is, oh, the Nazca lines must have been designed as landing strips for the gods, if that's what you believe. Or, oh, they can't have been designed as landing strips for the gods, they can't have been designed as landing strips for creatures from outer space, because I don't believe in it, or something. But what you find with language like that when students are in groups is the first one says, they can't have been designed as landing strips for creatures from outer space, and everyone else goes, yes.